Hello, I'm the Masked Gamer, and if my several videos on this movie, these merchandise, weren't obvious enough, I was really excited for it. I just watched it and got out of the theater roughly about 30 minutes ago, and I loved it. I loved all the fan service. It was, I think, a pretty solid movie in its own right, but oh lord, there was so much great fan service. It's not a direct adaptation of the game it's based on, which makes sense because the game it's based on hadn't been released in English when the movie began production. However, what I do think it did right, and this is something I've been saying for a while, I like how the movie manages to make the Pokemon look like real animals without making them look super disturbing. Except maybe Mr. Mime, but Mr. Mime is kind of supposed to be disturbing. I felt that the movie had a lot of great things about it, and warning right now, there will be major spoilers for the film in this video because I cannot help myself. If you are worried about spoilers and you haven't seen the movie yet, don't watch this video yet. Come back after you've watched the movie, because this movie is really good, and especially if you're a Pokemon fan, this is just delightful. One thing I liked about it was the element of fathers and sons in the story. If you are familiar with Pokemon, you know there is this very common, not really criticism, but just sort of observation that the father is a non-entity in the story. And I honestly find that this movie went about a very interesting way of taking that and making it a central part of the story. I've played the game this is based on, and I will say if you play the game and are expecting a direct adaptation, do not expect a direct adaptation. It uses the game as the loosest of loose. It has a handful of elements from the game it's based on, definitely, but the climax is, while similar to the game's actually, I'm actually underselling how much like the game it is, because while it's completely different in tone, and in a lot of ways it's completely different, it is more it does have many elements from the game, and there are multiple nods to the game throughout, which I do appreciate, and they're just nods to the series in general. However, the big thing in Detective Pikachu is that it is basically a mush of everything. It has elements essentially of the first movie, with Mewtwo being a central figure in the story, which granted, it was in Detective Pikachu the game, but nowhere near as much as it is here, because in that game, it was a plot twist, and here it is a major part of the plot. I also liked that in the movie proper, that it takes homage to the game's plot, but it takes the concept and does its own thing with it. And oh dear lord, this is one thing I want to say because it's the freshest in my memory. It is the fact that I love how the climax was basically an homage to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Even though we didn't hear the Pokemon aside from Pikachu talk, or Pikachu and Mewtwo talk, I liked how the climax was basically an homage to Mystery Dungeon in setup. And I think they went and took it in a very interesting direction. I actually wonder if, are they suggesting that in an alternate that Mystery Dungeon takes place in an alternate universe to this film's events? Oh dear. Anyway, I thought that the concept of taking basically the very basic concept of dad goes missing, son must go find, was really interesting. I also liked the twist at the end and how it was done. I also think Ryan Reynolds, once again, I don't know a whole lot about Ryan Reynolds, but from my understanding, this is basically just Ryan Reynolds in many ways, just being Ryan Reynolds. He's not super comedic. He is, in some ways, the comedic relief, but he isn't super duper comedic. There's comedy throughout, but I actually think that it's not very noir, for instance. If you play the game, which is a very British tone, this is not very British in tone. It's very American in tone, and you can tell. Because even though Rhyme City is a futuristic city, it's very clearly based on New York, which is weird because Pokemon already has its own version of New York, where New York is just straight up a country. But there are tons of little nods and winks throughout, and overall the film is just, it is very much a fan service movie in the best possible way. I'm probably not doing my best, but one thing I do want to say, well, I'll say one thing. Something I do want to say about it is that I liked Lucy a lot more than I liked the love interest from the Detective Pikachu game. She replaces a character I think named Amelia from the game, who served the same purpose in the plot and was similarly involved. But oh dear God, Lucy is a much better character, which is weird because she's in the movie less than Amelia is in the game. Well, granted, the game is just longer, but she's in the game and has less of a presence than... She somehow has more of a presence with comparatively less screen time than Amelia from the games, yet I like her so much more, because Amelia and Tim were not bad in the games. I do like them, but they are very generically nice characters in a lot of ways. So there is that element. They are not generically nice people. I liked how she was essentially the eccentric Mabel type in this game. I say game movie. In this movie, while Tim is there for closure. His goal was originally closure after the supposed death of his father, but then learning that his father isn't dead, he's wants this second chance to see his father again, and I loved the ending. It was very sweet, and there's this interesting element with what they did with Roger was actually really clever, especially because, like, I was expecting it to be an in-name only adaptation that just took the basic concept and rolled with it, but I liked how they incorporated it, and they actually made it have more of a presence. Because the only time in the game that I remember has a role is towards the middle, and even then, you don't actually see it happen on screen. You never see R in action on screen, you only see the after effects. In this game, you never see the after effects, you only ever see the immediate effects. I loved Mewtwo in this movie. I think, like, Mewtwo was one of the best things about the film, just because I liked how they basically made Mewtwo the anime Mewtwo in terms of personality. And what's interesting is that they basically completely wrote Ash out of his story, which was actually really unique, because they say that Harry's the one who taught him, and that the events of his creation, which is obviously a nod to the original games, but I just think this movie was amazing, especially if you're a Pokemon fan. And oh lord, I am hoping for a Pokemon Cinematic Universe. Oh dear, I really want a Pokemon Cinematic Universe after this movie. And what I can see as the next possible is hopefully a Coliseum film. Oh lord, Coliseum film, please happen. But, oh lord, I will probably drag my friend Blair into discussion about the potential of a Pokemon Cinematic Universe, but because the ending of this movie does not really leave itself super open to a direct sequel, just because of how it ends compared to how the game ends. So I'm going to say that much. I apologize for this very rambling video. To be blunt, I literally got out of the theater not too long ago. I'm in super hype mode, and I'm going off my pure reactions. Thank you very much for your time. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Also, if by some miracle Dominic Noble is watching this, I apologize for my comment on your Wanted review before seeing the movie, because now I realize, well, this would make a fun episode of Lost Adaptation. That would kind of be losing the point. So my apologies to Dominic Noble if he is watching this, though I highly doubt he is.